name's Sheena, and I will be discussing prototyping and its development and design process. First, to get started here, the topics I will be covering in this presentation include examining the design cycle, highlighting the key characteristics of prototyping's process, identifying different types, showing various kinds of prototypes, identifying 4 activities of evaluation, distinguishing the different strengths and weaknesses that go along with prototyping, and I will also cover a bit about the development of prototypes. What is a prototype? A prototype is basically just a model of the product prior to the product's release, and it's used for testing purposes and to work out all the kinks, basically. What is its purpose? It just provides specifications for a real working system. It resolves uncertainty through use. It also helps to learn and evaluate before committing to large sums of money, and basically before putting on the money into it to get it out on the market. Because if it's not going to work, then there's no reason to invest all that money. And it uses the model learning by doing, which is just using it and figuring out all the problems beforehand. Move on, the design of the prototype. These are just kind of like key things to know in the designing of it. And you just to choose. The first one is to choose aspects of a prototype for relevance to your project goals. Identify measurable design goals. Make sure it's good enough to provide feedback, but flexible enough for significant changes to be made down the line. And to focus on a specific aspect or goal, which I will go into more of this further in the presentation, but this kind of gives you an idea. The design cycle of a prototype. The first one happens before the design even begins, and it's just identifying that there's a problem with whatever it may be. Next is to come up with specifications, and basically kind of like a model. And then the third one is ideas, coming up with ideas, bouncing them off others, and that sort of thing. Then creating a solution, and strategizing a solution, and testing it. Some key characteristics of the prototyping process include the iterative process, which is basically the refining and tweaking. That's what that is. And then it also includes involvement of end users, communication and learning, and incorporates evaluation, which I will also discuss this further. Okay, this is just more of the process. The requirements, prototypes is just determining the specifications, and then those are usually discarded, which leads to why it's referred to as the throwaway prototypes, because these do not go into development or anything. These are just prior to the evolutionary prototypes, which is also known as incremental prototypes. The evolutionary prototypes evolve into the actual operational system, which is then redesigned and recoded and, like I said earlier, tweaked, and that actually goes into a product. But the requirement prototype is the easiest way to think of it is it's a sketch, basically. There are many different kinds or types of prototypes or kinds. They can be anything from graphics, virtual models, sketches, packaging, diagrams and framework, machine constructions, spaces, videos, experiences, role play, etc. The list really does go on because it just depends on what it is. This also leads into the different levels of prototypes. There's low fidelity, medium fidelity, and high fidelity, which is also known or referred to as lo-fi or hi-fi. And the fidelity means is basically like technology, like low technology. The low ones are the cheapest, and they basically include sketches and just the basics, the very basics. And it's like I said, the cheapest. Then the medium fidelity is like a combination of high and low, which the high is usually the more expensive, professional, and which is definitely more expensive. And like I said, the mid is just a combination of both. But like graphics and videos and that sort of thing, and machine constructions. That all includes the high fidelity. Prototype evaluation. It starts with preparation, it goes to demonstration of the prototype, using the prototype, and discussion of content. In the preparation, it's just basically identifying what the goals are of the prototype. What's its purpose? What's the prototype's purpose? And the demonstration of the prototype includes complete, well-structured demonstration. It's thorough and even it's professional. Using the prototype, this gives users the opportunity to use it and form their own opinion. And then the discussion of comments, this is just focused around the goal set in step one, the preparation. But it just goes to make sure, like, is it finished? Is there going to be another phase? Did you achieve your goal of what you intended for the prototype? And that's the weaknesses of a prototype is it poses some uncertainty. It's not always easy to plan. Prototypes may appear different to the final product. Care must be taken thoroughly in the evolutionary prototyping. Early prototypes can also raise user expectations of early delivery, and they also require a significant amount of commitment. Some strengths, on the other hand, include a clear validation of user requirements, user involvement. Iterations motivate development team because they can see it getting better. Early deliverables maintain motivation of designers and developers. And that lowers the risks associated with inadequate understanding of requirements. Most prototypes fail, but it also weeds out the chances of the product failing. Just coming up with a basic paradigm, which is model, and then evaluating scenarios and tasks associated and correlating them in. And then information needs, that's just the determining the specifications, like the size of it, how it's going to work, and that sort of thing. The conceptual model, metaphors, functional patterns, that is just like ideas, coming up with ideas, throwing them out there, trying them out. And then the implementations, that goes back to the low, the medium, and the high fidelity I discussed earlier. And that's just going through each of them, the sketches, then bringing in some higher technology, and that sort of thing, and bringing all of them in at some point. Just in summary, to conclude the stages of prototyping, it begins with inspiration, and then evolution of your idea, and then validation, and then the product. There are various types of approaches in developing a prototype, and this all goes back to the product, and it very much varies on that. There isn't one idea of a product you're developing, and so the approach is going to be different. Like, for example, the development of an electronic prototype is going to be different than the development of a website. But overall, regardless of what the product is, so the prototype phase is a pretty important one, and not to skip this phase of the development of your product. It's obviously not required, but in the end, it will save you a lot of headaches and most likely a lot of money. Prototyping is cheap, and it does a lot for what it is. So I hope you learned a lot by this presentation, and thank you for listening.